So based on that, we're gonna jump right in. I know that this is a beautiful Saturday, and I want to make sure that we all get as much value out of this as possible. So without further ado, I am excited to share my screen and hop right into this. And so, all right, cool. My screen should be sharing, and I see the confirmation, and I see the little thumbnail. These are the like visibility of system feedback. All right, so hey everybody, thank you so much for coming. Housekeeping rules: please keep yourselves muted and hold your questions towards the end, where I will field them, collect them, and go through it. So we're all here to talk about how to land your UX role that's aligned with your why. And I'm really excited to get into this. So this is going to be a kickoff, a breakdown of my journey through design career uncertainty. And maybe maybe from your perspective, I may seem uh like some kind of golden child. If you've seen any of my posts on LinkedIn, you'll know that that's not true, and that my career journey was anything but perfect, anything but golden. um, it was real. And so based on that, let's hop right in. So my first dream was to become a comic book artist. This is a shot of me, like on the left side, with that red hat. That's me at the San Diego Comic Convention. The San Diego Comic Convention is by far the best comic book convention on the planet that you could ever go to. And so if you have a chance, you should go. And at the same time, it's just there's just absolutely nothing like it. And so there I had a chance to meet artists, writers, different creative teams. And then towards the right, that's a photo of me and Mr. Ron Mars, one of my favorite writers for Green Lantern, one of my favorite, in fact, my favorite superhero, which is very, very, very tricky when I'm such a diehard Batman fan. What can I show you? Whoop. That's just one of many. Look, there's two Batman comic books. Let's stay on topic. So from a child, I wanted to be a comic book artist, illustrator, and I went to art school. So I'm in Toronto, and so OCADU is one of the best places that you can go for the arts, for creative, for media, for design, apart from Sheridan. And so this was my dream, right? And I pursued it. But at the same time, I learned from talking to people in the industry and learning more about my like the path ahead of me. I realized that a pivot would actually make more sense because there's more solitude involved for an illustrator, and for a large part of it. A lot of it is fairly solitary when you're doing the actual work, whether you're a penciler, inker, colorist, letterer. There is some collaboration, right? But for the most part, you're on your own, you're solo. And so I realized that I needed to move into a different direction and keep illustration as a hobby. And I realized that, team-based environments were better for me, just the way that I'm wired. Uh, and at the same time, I was looking for more stability, right? And so taking my first steps into the unknown, um, not realizing that this was just the beginning. I mean, I wouldn't trade that for the world. That's life learned experience. And you know, at the same time, when I say that my path wasn't golden or perfect and it was real, okay, let's start unpacking that. So when I say it was real, it was real struggle. And so depression and uncertainty about the future was real. Feeling trapped in jobs, disconnected from my goals, was real. And having to maintain this belief in myself that I was on the right path despite the obstacles, despite what my family was telling me. Like, and they had nothing but best intentions for me, right? But they also didn't understand the world as I saw it, because I'm one of the first creatives in my family, in this sense, traditional sense, like illustration, graphic design, even UX, right? Like, how many times have you tried to explain what UX is to your family? Like, let me know in the chat. Hit Y. And based on that, right? how did I maintain this resolve and stamina while trying to push through challenge after challenge after challenge? And so that was that was just the beginning, like the struggle as just like this overarching theme. But then at the same time, feeling this professional devaluation of being undervalued and misled in professional settings. I've had internships before where they promised me that yeah, well, yeah, well, this is an internship. You're going to work for 30 days, and we'll evaluate you during that period, and then towards the end, we'll see, we'll talk about what it looks like for you to potentially join the team. And then that time would come, and they'd be like, yeah, but I was doing well. Everyone was happy with my work. People weren't supervising me. I was independent, but collaborative. And then it never materialized into anything. And this kept happening, like both in internships and with contract work, giving all of myself, um, yearning to be part of the team and be accepted, but then not having that sort of promise be fulfilled, right? And that was hard. And then being treated as like a pixel pushing monkey from people who have no basis, no background in design or creative or communication in terms of how these come together whatsoever. And that was very disheartening. And as a result, facing that kind of professional disrespect, like this is my role, especially like when I worked as a graphic designer. I was hired to do this job. This is what I do. This is what I've been trained to do. I know it inside and out. And you're telling me to do things that completely contradict your goal. And I didn't put it in those words, right? But I could see that's what was happening, and still I was being treated like a pixel pushing monkey. Just do it, right? And that sucked. And then the instability, roller coaster, moving from contract to contract without knowing what was going to be around that corner. Was I going to be able to turn this into, was I going to be able to turn my career into something that I'm proud of, matched my vision, and that would allow for me to grow? I didn't know. And being on the outside looking in at dream organizations, sometimes doing informational interviews with agencies and companies that I just wanted to be part of, had so much respect for, but and sometimes just got so close to, you know attaining, right? um it was hard for me. It was hard, but I still kept going. It wasn't easy, but I still kept going. And so trying to be creative and trying to push forward to continue to lay the the bricks of my career brick by brick, um was an ongoing, it was a journey. And if you're wondering, like I've been hinting at it already, but I mean, come on, like my confidence at that time was not uh invulnerable. I was still building, I was still growing, I was still early in my career, trying to formulate and figure things out, questioning if I had what it takes. And at the same time being in different environments, teams, and departments that were crumbling around me, and trying to navigate that. And being in situations where I was facing imminent layoffs and trying to support my family. And that first layoff for me was in 2008, and that was that it was the first, and it was the most difficult. That's the one. That's where I fell into depression and had to claw myself back out of that. And so, yeah, I've been there. And then this idea of the professional paradox. Have you been in so far? Have any of you been in situations like these? Like, keep track and like let me know which ones of these have been a moment for you of vulnerability, of doubt. Let me know. So I've been in this situation where I was valuable enough to hunt for clients, pitch to them on UX and the best practices of UX. Like I ran a 4-hour workshop with the Canada Migraine Foundation, and they trusted me to do that. But then at the same time, when time came to start considering and talking about who should we lay off, even though I was part of the team that was bringing in clients, signing and booking clients, names started to float onto the list. And I was a one of one wearing both UX design and research hats. I was a one of one. There was no one to replace me. So based on like the clients we signed, why was my name on that list? And so that sent me into a spiral of terror that I had to fight my way out of. And what facing that kind of job insecurity and dealing with imposter syndrome, like despite my demonstrating my level of proficiency and expertise, competency, um, that does something to you. And navigating that disconnect between professional, like my professional contributions and personal recognition, it's hard. It was difficult. And so that like you could see this coming. This is not really a spoiler. The mental challenges that were involved with my journey from the early stages of my design career and through towards pivoting into UX, of course, imposter syndrome loves to rear its ugly head, loves to rear it, loves to. But how do you manage it? How did I manage it? I had to figure something out, and it tested my sense of belonging in the profession, my reconciling like external validation versus persistent internal doubts, and trying to find this balance and a way to like turn the volume down on it so that I could manage it and get to a place where I could stop thinking about whether I truly deserved my place in the design community. If you know what that feels like, hit Y, type Y in the chat. And so when I hit rock bottom and nothing was working for me, um, I I was throwing everything at my situation to see what would stick. And I had no idea what was working and what was hurting my job search. And I remember feeling lost and alone. And at the same time, watching other people around me, like my peers from OCAD and from design school, they were all seemingly doing better than me. And I was like, well, what am I doing wrong? I've done everything that we've all done the same stuff. We've all been trained the same way. Why am I not, when is it going to be my moment? And if I could do it all over again, I would coach myself. If I could coach myself by going back in time, I'm a nerd. If I could go back in time, I would push younger Chris to work with a professional who could have guided me. Um, it would have saved me years and tears, years and tears. Um, yeah. And the best part is that I hired that that type of person to help me years and years later when I was trying to recalibrate what I was trying to do with the next chapters of my career. And so non-strategic approaches waste valuable time and emotional resources. I mean, I can't tell you how it would have been. I would have done anything to have that type of support, which is part of why that's part of my mission, to be the type of mentor and coach that I wish I had all those years ago. And if any of you are thinking 2025 is a train wreck, like there's no way, like there's just like should I even stay in this field as a UX researcher, designer, like product manager? Should I think about something completely different? And to that I would say 2025 isn't anything like 2008, and you can see it here on my slide. I sent nearly 1,000 resumes into what felt like an infinite black hole, and that was exactly what contributed to my depression and and imposter syndrome. And I learned a lot about myself in that phase of my career. Today's landscape is a lot stronger by comparison, and if any of you uh, were building for yourselves your career in 2008, I think you would agree. But even through that, I still broke through to what was my first long my first long stretch of what would become the next, like the new chapter that I was dreaming for, which was to become a graphic designer. And I broke through and I finally got a role. I did it. And that win, those kind of wins are invaluable. And if you've ever felt anything like that, let me know in the chat, because that's, I mean, we are not our work, but at the same time, when people see you and recognize you, there's no better feeling. But as part of like my UX origin story, I did graphic design officially, right? Like with a role with the Toronto District School Board for 4 years. And during that time, I pivoted. I pivoted to UX. I pivoted. And then I got my next role. I did it again. And I love this slide. Shout out to Dave Chappelle. But I did that. And then once and being and embarking on that journey and immersing myself, having already committed to UX and pivoting into my first UX role, I never looked back. And since then, I did it again and again and again and again and again. I did it. And so here I am. If you know who I am, thanks for coming. But if you haven't met me before, my name is Chris Miller, and I'm a senior experience designer at Electronic Arts Frostbite. And I work on the game engine for solutions to help empower game creators and developers. And I am living my dream. I'm living my dream. But there are two sides to that dream. And the other half is to help others find their path, using my experience to guide designers through career uncertainty, to help them gain access to their dream by being the type of coach and mentor that I wish I had. And that's why I'm here. And I've mentored and coached over 97 people. And so let's talk about some of the people that I've helped. This is Victoria. And there's no spoiler. I'm not really worried about that. She transitioned from ad tech, where she was thriving, into health tech. So she was already leading teams and collaborated with agencies and gained her exposure to UX. And that's when she pivoted. But then she found that she was struggling with interviews and rejections despite relevant experience. And that took a serious toll on her. And we were working together from the beginning on that. And so sitting down and unpacking what it was that was getting in her way, or what else was there that was part of her, I wouldn't say DNA, but part of her core beliefs, right? So she thought that she needed to state that the only way she could successfully pivot or embark on the next chapter of her career would be to stay in ad tech, where she's a multitude of experience and contacts, and her reputation was already there and thriving to her benefit, right? But then when it got into in final stages for an ad tech company, and they tried to lowball her, even though her work was solid and she was using uh, uh, relevant market data to reflect her experience and capability. She'd been on $1 million contracts before in her ad tech journey, and they still tried to lowball her. And then when she gave them her counter, which was still fair, they dropped her and went and moved on with someone else, which shows the character that they had. But at the same time, it took a toll on her. And that's when we sat down and got to the root of it. And she let me know that, like, I mean, if I can't be here, what am I going to do? And I point blank asked her, okay, well, is ad tech the only space you can see yourself in? And then she told me that she's always actually dreamed of moving into like the medical space and health tech. And I'm like, well, you never told me this before. Let's break that down. Let's unpack that. And then we worked together to build her transition with this realigned strategy. And she landed her role in health tech, and she found, and she's been winning ever since. Like, she's still there. So it's coming up on 2.5, close to 3 years now. So Victoria's story highlights the importance of aligning your career goals with your personal passions. And her success came from, this assisted reflection and strategic pivoting. So now, if that resonates with you, Let me know in the chat. But then I wonder if you are an experienced professional telling yourself that you have to start over and take a junior role in order to achieve that, then I want to share Nina's story. Nina was a career academic and then moved into like customer service and hospitality management. And during that, like that arc of her career, she had already developed strong empathy and problem solving skills. And she pivoted to UX during that time. But she was facing transition hurdles, having to deal with industry bias and this perception of her, and the challenge that was butting up against her portfolio, even though her design ability was strong, right? There were no real errors. So just errors, like glaring junior errors, not at all. She was punching at the level of senior. And so what was happening? Why was she being judged in this way? And so we sat down, right? Like I wouldn't say rinse and repeat, but we spent time recognizing how her previous academic and hospitality experience translated to best user experience design principles. And that's when she broke through, right? We leveraged her unique background and she secured her UX role, bringing her fresh perspective to the field. And so she now works in the US for one of the top grocery presences in the US. And so Nina's story demonstrates how seemingly unrelated experience can become a competitive advantage. So her success came from reframing her background and confidently showcasing her unique value. If that resonates with you, let me know. And so if you've been laid off and feel like you have to accept whatever is coming your way, and you're starting to question your competency because of the layoff, and you're blaming yourself, then I invite you to hear Matt's story. And Matt and I worked together in one of my previous companies, and he was already an established product manager. And so he already had a strong portfolio and reputation, having developed valuable industry experience and his connections as a result. And then he experienced an unexpected layoff, and facing this sudden job loss during a company restructuring, despite his strong performance, took a toll on him. And so that's when we started working together. I mean, I'll be honest with you, after he spent a year going it alone, that's when he came to me to like start, to sit down and ask, okay, well, I've been doing this, and this, and things are not progressing. Like in his case, he was not moving past first stage interviews. And so we needed to audit what he was doing to understand what needed to change. And in his case, it was how he was talking about being laid off, which is an uncommon, rather, it's unfortunately becoming a common theme. But at the same time, how do you deal with that? How do you communicate that? How do you express it? And balancing these ideas. I've been laid off 2.5 times in my career. There's this idea of, okay, well, shame and vulnerability and doubt that you need to sort through and move to the side when you step into the room. But he wasn't doing that. And so that's what we did. That's the work that we did, amongst other things, to reframing and updating his portfolio and leveraging his network effectively. And that's when he made his comeback, landing not only an improved role with a better culture and compensation within 3 months. So he was laid off once. He was with that company for a year, but then there was another layoff, and then he went back into the market, right? And then landed another role, and that's what this is. So he landed, his comeback was twofold. Okay, we started working the first time, and he landed a role, worked for another year. There was a reorg, and he was impacted, and then we went right back to it, and then he got his next role in 3 months. And I just want that to be clear, okay? Because his story illustrates how resilience and strategic planning can transform career setbacks into opportunities. His success came from maintaining confidence and approaching his job search with purpose and organization. If that resonates with you, if you've ever been in a situation like this, let me know in the chat. Now, it's time to talk about problems. Right now, it's half past time to talk about problems that we are dealing with in our UX design, research, product, career, current state. And so, if any of these problems resonate with you, I'd like for you to keep track and let me know in the chat or towards the end. That would be really helpful. So, something's not right. You're showing up to interviews feeling overprepared because you spent all night practicing with your plants and peers and your cat Skittles, but you show up and answers don't feel like you. You feel awkward and your knees are shaking. Has this happened to you? What about chasing credibility? You're afraid that you're not qualified for the role, that you end up taking a ton of courses and rely too much on boot camps to convincingly land the job that you really want. What about, we've touched on this, it's been coming up and it's happening. Are you getting stuck at first stage interviews? You're excited, you said all the right things in your first interview, and the recruiter looked pleased with what you were saying, and maybe they were like, maybe they were laughing along with you. Maybe you felt like you made a connection, right? And you leave it feeling like you like, okay, that was a piece of cake, but you still get ghosted. What about is your current state being trapped in toxicity in your current organization or team, where your ideas are constantly being dismissed or undervalued, and you're burned out and tired of the office politics? Is this happening to you? Do you feel like you're withering away? Problem number 5. You feel like your growth is stagnated and you're not getting the support and mentorship within your organization to move up and into another role. Is this happening to you? And what about problem 6, which I feel is taking place across this current state? We're fighting a broken hiring process. Remember, even in 2008, during the Great Recession, I was sending out thousands of applications, and compare then to now, there are still too many steps in a lot of hiring situations. And at the same time, there are a lot of companies who still don't know what they're looking for. And if you're lucky, you'll get the dreaded rejection email, but most of the time you get crickets, you get nothing, you get ghosted instead. Is that happening to you? What about the old catch 22, where you want to grow your career, you want to break into, UX or even a more senior role, design, research, product, engineering, the list goes on. You need experience, but then how do you get the experience if no one is willing to give you a chance? And this frustrating loop, right? Do any of those problems resonate with you? But we need to talk about the mistakes that we're making as well. Are you mistake 1? And again, if any of these resonate with you, collect and let me know in the chat. It helps a ton. Are you applying to every single thing you see across Indeed, LinkedIn, you name it, Monster, I don't care, blind, built in, right? You're applying to everything you see, thinking that just quantity, if I tackle this thing, at some point, I'm going to break through. Someone will notice me. And so whether you're mega customizing or using generic materials, you hope something will eventually get you noticed. But at the end of the week, you've got dozens of unanswered applications. You're burned out and wondering why your shotgun approach is not working. Is this happening to you? Is this what you're doing? Please let me know. Mistake number 2, career amnesia. You've been in the game for quite some time. You've this is like the phenomenon where talented professionals literally forget their accomplishments and strengths over time. And this is particularly challenging for underrepresented groups in UX and many other careers who may already face imposter syndrome and or lack consistent positive reinforcement. So career amnesia feeds directly into like negotiation and interview struggles where you cannot confidently present the value that you have and that you've forgotten that you offer. And so in interviews, you can't recall these concrete examples of your impact. And the result is that you fail to showcase your true potential. They pass you over. We went with someone else. Is this happening to you? What about strength blindness? You're struggling to see your own strengths clearly, doubting what you're truly capable of. And you're letting negative feedback from your past or present cloud your judgment. Is that happening to you? Making it difficult for you to recognize your real talents. And so when opportunities come up, you freeze and you're unable to articulate your value again because you can't even see it yourself. And so instead of embracing your unique abilities, you're stuck in a cycle, this cycle of self-doubt that is holding you back from the roles you deserve. Is this happening to you? Are you settling for less? You're overdue for a promotion because you prefer stability and you'd rather stay under the radar. Or on the flip side, are you applying to roles that are too junior for you? These are mistakes and problems that I've learned over the past 8 months from going back into the community and at the same time my old coworkers and unpacking my own experience. And these we're not talking about this enough. So are you settling for less? And then an oldie but a goodie, the perfect trap. Are you trapped in perfectionist cycles with your portfolio where you spin and spin and spin and spin and spin because you want it to be perfect before you put yourself out there? So you don't apply at all and wait until the time is right. I'm guilty of that. I've done that in my past. I wouldn't have been able to make those transitions thanks on my DJ Khaled slide if I was still suffering from this mistake. If this is happening to you, if you're feeding the perfection trap, that has to stop. You got to let that go. What about the AI crutch? Are you over relying on ChatGPT or Claude, you name it, using stories that are disconnected to who you are and the value that you create? So you're copying and memorizing the most Melba Toast answers to the point where you don't even recognize yourself. Like, are you doing that? No, that's a mistake. And then what about endless rambling, where you're stuck delivering long ass winded explanations to the point where the recruiter and hiring manager feel overwhelmed? On my LinkedIn page, I talk about my worst interview experience 2018, and I just like did I grab I still have the notes from my from that interview, and I like live reacted to what I did to bring me back to that moment, and it was awful. Check that one out. I was guilty of that. I was guilty of that. And it hurt my chances. It hindered my ability to move forward. And so like when you're rambling, you're overwhelming the person on the other side to the point where they can't even remember what you said. And in my 2018 interview, I even forgot what I was saying and I had to ask for the question again. And then in the end, not only was I told, like I bombed that interview and they told me that they went with someone else, but that's also what is largely happening when we're committing these types of mistakes. Is this happening to you? All that to say, it's time to break that cycle. Your career deserves better than fear-driven decisions and self-doubt. So in order to fix these things, we got to shake things up. We got to shake things up. Yeah, if you know who this is, tell me in the chat. Correct answers only. I'm a nerd, and I'm proud of it. So step one is to define your why. It's about self-discovery, career alignment, and empowered decision making. And so your why serves as your career compass, illuminating paths that align with your deepest values. Now, what are the risks of ignoring your why? You suffer from a directionless path, external control. So if you don't assume the role of captain and navigator of your career, someone else, leadership or the organization, life, if you do not take control of it, other external factors will do it for you. And then there's the work misalignment, this disconnection from meaningful tasks, mentally checking out from like what you're doing if you're in that role and it's misaligned to you. And then job dissatisfaction, right? Burning out and growing frustrated along the way. That these are the risks, and I've lived that too. But here are the benefits of knowing what your why is: career clarity, authentic narrative, targeted progression. So your energy becomes focused on meaningful advancement instead of spray and pray. And then your confidence is going to grow. It's going to skyrocket as a result. Speaking with certainty about your path, what it is that you want and who you want to do it with, you become unstoppable. But then here's why your why is not enough. There's no this is it's not about perfection, right? There's a knowledge gap. Self-awareness alone does not create opportunities. And external representation of these internal insights also need outward expression. And then the need of being able to effectively articulate these insights to others is critical. There's a communication need. And then the platform requirement. Your why needs venues to showcase your authentic purpose. And so step 2 is to build your brand, right? So it's professional identity. Remember Victoria, right? She showcased her empathy and problem solving during her ad tech to health tech shift. And knowing what her why was, she was able to focus that into purpose driven connections. And so transforming your why into a recognizable professional identity is what this is about. But what are the risks of neglecting your brand? You end up looking like everyone else, suffering from generic perception. Your opportunities become limited. It becomes harder to secure desired positions. And then you just don't compete well enough because weak positioning undermines your competitive stance. These cascading consequences affect your career trajectory and market perception. But then the benefits of strong branding: you gain professional visibility, the market presence that keeps you on the radar of potential employers and clients 24/7, like your portfolio is an example. And then your networking opportunities will increase. Your credibility will grow because enhanced professional trust means that employers are more likely to consider candidates with stronger personal brands. They're putting themselves out there and people are recognizing them. And then the market differentiation allows for you to stand out from competitors 2.5 times at least, with greater recognition in your professional space. But here's why branding is not enough: the materials limitation. A polished brand does not guarantee interviews. The personal interaction need. Documents can't replace human connection. And if any of you have been like seeing on seeing the videos where people are using AI like real time in their interviews, like it's hilarious. But at the same time, like, and one, like, the interviewer is like, "Are you using AI?" And then the person's like, "Nah, let me share my screen." But then, boom, 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 boom. See, not at all. Here's my other screen. Boom, boom. Nothing. See, boom, nothing. I'm just built different, sir. Um, you can't fake human connection. The need is real. But then communication skills, this ability to demonstrate live conversation ability, that's critical. And then brand animation is this need to bring your profile to life in person, in that call, in the room, on the phone, especially on a portfolio a portfolio review panel. Have you been in a room real time or virtual with like 8 people or more? I have. And I needed to present my portfolio. AI is not going to save you there, my friends. So this is where step 3, your professional charisma development, comes into play. Interview mastery, where you perfect your conversation skills, developing authentic communication to speak with genuine conviction and leveraging connection, right? And then confidence building. I wasn't always like this. I had to grow. I had to go on my hero's journey, right? In order to be able to develop this unshakable professional presence that I have and that I teach and coach. And then, like I said, connection development. Creating meaningful professional relationships is also part of the human experience, right? But then what are the risks of neglecting charisma? You end up appearing unprepared, right? Which creates negative first impressions. Uh, you get perceived as being junior, right? Your interview success rate decreases. In some cases, you can't get past first stage interviews because that was your moment. That was your moment to build rapport. That was your moment to share who you are and where you've been and where you're trying to go. But it wasn't coming together. And then as a result, you not only do you miss those advancement opportunities to succeed, but then it also can bleed into your networking opportunities on the street, in a coffee shop, or you overhear somebody. If you're in a relevant networking event, you're in the corner, knees shaking, full sweat. You don't know what to do with your hands, avoiding eye contact with people, or maybe you're making eye contact with people, and you're like, oh, they saw me, they saw me. Um, Maybe if I just pretend that I'm asleep, they'll ignore me. These are the risks of not developing that. But what are the benefits? Enhanced interviews, stronger relationships, increased hiring opportunities, and a memorable presence. I mean, I have a little bit of personality, but I had to invest in myself in order to, blossom and come into my own. You don't need to be extroverted. I'm actually more of an ambivert. That doesn't mean you need to stop being who you are in order to cultivate these abilities. And so this is your career. This is your journey. Okay. And these 3 steps that I've shared with you about, like, identity discovery, defining your why, the development of your career story by building your brand so that it's a compelling narrative that positions you as the obvious choice for someone to pick up the phone or send you that DM or write you that email to invite you to that call, that interview, into that process to meet that team. And then interviewing excellence, right? To build and develop your professional charisma so that you can build genuine confidence that shines through every conversation, everywhere you go, not just in an interview. These are the 3 pillars. These are my 3-step process pillars. Okay? Let that sink in. Does this resonate with you? Let me know in the chat. Okay. Okay. And so, next steps. I want you to book a free strategy call. Let me take my mouse right over here. Thanks, Deadpool. Yes, it's the right choice. Book a consultation call. You lose nothing. But here's the thing. I do not work with everyone. I have a full-time job working in my dream in for me my dream job tier on one of the largest and most well-known video game companies on the planet. Humble brag. I have a full-time job. I have very limited spots for mentorship. So on this call, we are not going to make a decision to move forward unless we both feel we're a fit. I don't force fit. And of course, we're going to come up with a customized plan specific to you. And based on that, we can talk about what the investment is going to look like. It's very simple. So I'm going to share the link in the chat. And based on that, let's talk. I'm gonna look to unmute some people now. I'm gonna look to unmute some people. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna unmute. Let me get ready to stop sharing. Okay, cool. Unmute everybody. Gotcha. Okay, lay it on me.